Thank you for accepting to stay after school. I know that a lot of things to do, but I think you're going to have a great time going through the lesson study process. I'd like to highlight that here at Talkite, we have had 3 lesson study sessions already, and some of you already participated.
Lesson study is when a team of people come together and one person has prepared a lesson, and we look at what they've prepared and we improve upon it based on the group's collective thinking. Then the teacher who has allowed us the opportunity to co-create a lesson teaches the lesson, and in real time, the rest of us watch this.
To have your colleagues around you and have that buy-in and that input and those wonderings out loud before you give the lesson, I think is very valuable for all educators.
Oftentimes, a lot of teachers say, I wish I had a fly on the wall to see all the things I'm doing. And so I think this is a chance for us to be multiple flies on the wall and see lots of different things happening from multiple different angles.
It can be a little scary being the one observed, but what comes out of it, from both parties is really beneficial.
It's nice to see other set of eyes and what they see in my teaching and what they see in the actual activity. Was it meaningful to my students? Was it challenging? Was there enough choice? Was there enough relevance to what they're living now?
We decided to start this second stage of lesson study working with pre-K and kindergarten teachers to talk about the pedagogy in classrooms where 5-year-olds are learning.
I have 31 students. 2 of them are special ed. 20 of them are ESLs learners, and my whole class is directed in Spanish. We've been talking a lot about hibernation, so we have this book. It's in both languages, but I'm going to be reading it in Spanish. We have a list of the animals that we already that hibernate, and I think we need to add a couple more animals. We're also going to be looking at pictures first and just thinking what is happening. And so then after we discuss it, I'll read the book and we'll find out, did it add on to our thinking?
Are you going to read the whole book or just pull out some moments of the book?
I will pull out some moments from the book, yeah. Because we started talking about how nonfiction books, we don't need to read them all. We could just read a couple of pages. So I would probably use the bare ones. It's good to just hear other people hear me thinking out loud of how I plan my lessons and the reasoning behind it.
Are they all going to use a similar gesture for hibernation?
Yes.
Do you want them to try to branch out and maybe, show something else that animals do with their bodies when they hibernate?
Actually, I wanted to incorporate some acting in there. I just wasn't sure how to do it, so that's a great idea.
An important part of that lesson planning is putting it onto a template that can serve as a compass of sorts for teaching in ways that are intrinsically motivating to each and every student. There are 4 conditions that are part of that compass: inclusion, attitude, meaning, and competence.
I think having the visual gives us the opportunity to see the gaps that we may have in our teaching.
With the motivational framework, these are all things that we as teachers talk about anyway. Is this something that's going to interest them? Is there scaffolding for higher level thinking? It just makes you kind of stop and think and be like, oh, okay, I did do everything. Or, ooh, I missed a part of this framework. How can I change my lesson?
What you want to know the children have learned by the end of this lesson, how would you define that?
So I guess it took a turn. Instead of recalling information, then I guess they're going to inference.
So that's the goal, is that they can make an inference.
Ultimately, what's the question? What are they going to be answering? Who hibernates? How do you hibernate? I think.
How do we, if we're inferencing them, we're going to look at this picture and we're going to know, a new picture maybe, or from the book. No, a new picture, and just saying, oh, how do we know this animal is hibernating?
So what you guys have in front of you is the rubric. It's very specific on what you're going to be focusing on. So some people may have inclusion, other people may have attitude, meaning, and competence. So just kind of briefly look over the rubric so you can have some kind of understanding of what you're going to be looking at.
Hemos hablado mucho de animales en el invierno, ¿verdad que sí? Sí. Una palabra muy importante. Hibernan. Voy a escribir aquí.
As I'm watching Rosalba, I see myself, like, what would I have done right there? Or what would I have liked to have planned right there? So I take kind of her out of it and put myself in the situation. You know, what visuals would I use? What words would I use? How might I have sequenced this to fit my students?
Hiberna el oso por Rosalba. ¿Cómo sé que está hibernando?
Porque está los ojos cerrados.
Yo veo que los ojos están cerrados del oso. Yo veo ojos cerrados.
We are going to go through the different components of the motivational framework. And we are going to try to capture our thoughts in the form of wows and wonders.
After we all observe the lesson, we use the rubric as a baseline for the conversation. However, the conversation is very natural and it flows. We start in the forms of wows. What were those things that jumped out to you like, this was great?
They all looked so engaged and like sitting and please call on me. I can't wait to share my idea. So I thought the lesson had a good momentum to it where there was movement, there was listening, there was turning and talking, where they were like mentally engaged the whole time.
And then after we go through the forms of wows, we go through wonders. And the wonders are questions that we walked away having. And we align that with the rubric, the framework as well.
How do you get them riled up and excited and moving to back and being focused and not like, it transitioned so effortlessly.
They've also practiced just stretching in their spots and then coming down. So it's been a trajectory of little things because this is a chatty group. This is an active group. So they've come long ways in controlling their body. This was a good insight to see how my practice is going. Hearing their feedback about inclusion, meaning and competence and how that all is interrelated. It just sort of reaffirms what I'm doing for the children is actually working.
We already scheduled different lesson studies for the rest of the school year every 6 weeks. My goal personally is that everyone gets included in this process because it's really powerful.